Swing bracket!
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is obviously part of a series where I focus on a specific director and rank that director's work from worst to best. Done such directors in the past such as David Lynch, David Fincher, Wes Anderson, the list goes on. You guys can check that out in my director playlist down below. But guys, you click in this video so you know this time around I'm focusing on Terry Gilliam's films and ranking them from worst to best. Now, Terry Gilliam, as of the filming of this video, he has done 13 films. And I'll be ranking them from 13 being his worst to 1 being his best, and of course, my opinion. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to be including any music videos, TV shows, short films, none of that. Just specifically the movies that he's directed. I did kind of cheat with one film. I'm not going to lie. I did cheat with one film where it is technically directed by 2 directors, and normally that's a big no. If I see that there's a director and it's like, multiple directors worked on everything, usually I'll say no, I'm not going to include that. But here, I kind of felt obligated to, and you'll see what I mean. But he did technically work on 2 movies with, a different director. I didn't include the one, but I did include the other. So you'll see when you get to it, guys. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of these titles, I'm not going to lie, they are very hard for me to pronounce. I have difficulty with pronouncing certain words, but especially these words with Terry Gilliam film titles, they're very difficult. So just please bear with me. I know the internet can be very intolerable, so please just bear with me. I'm giving you guys a heads up at the very least. So anyways, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off at number 13, we have the Brothers Grimm. Yeah, this is bottom of the barrel. This is terrible. Makes sense. There was a lot of studio interference. Terry Gilliam wasn't happy with the final product. I get it. It's not a good movie. It's terrible. That's why it's on number 13. Next up, number 12 is Tideland. This is a movie that is brimming with so much imagination, but unfortunately, it's just so unfocused. It's so unfiltered and so unfocused that you just let the imagery wash over you. It's a very beautiful movie, but it's also very ugly at the same time. And by that, I just mean that it's so ugly in terms of the tone and pacing. It seemed so incoherent in terms of all those things. It's not a movie that I liked personally, but I do respect it because he directed it right after doing Brothers Grimm. So I get it. He wanted a lot of creativity and control and everything, and this is the results. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, you be the judge to decide that. But I personally wasn't a big fan of this movie, and that's why it is my number 12. Next up, we have number 11, which, here we go, in terms of titles that are very difficult for me to pronounce. Number 11, we have The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. I apologize in advance, but this movie was Heath Ledger. Technically Heath Ledger's last movie. I thought it was kind of indifferent. I liked the makeup, the costume design. It's very luscious in those regards. But besides that, there's really not much about this movie I would recommend, other than being able to say that, hey, you've seen the last movie with Heath Ledger. But yeah. Why it's my number 11. Next up, my number 10 is Jabberwocky. So Jabberwocky is one of his earlier movies. It's not bad. It's got some creepy imagery. It's neat production design. Not much to really write home about, though. I liked it a little bit better than the previous entry I mentioned, but still not a big fan of this movie. And that is why it's my number 10. Next up, my number 9 is The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. This movie I know was in development hell for years. It took them a long time to make. And I respect the movie on that front. But in terms of entertainment-wise, I can't give them props there because I thought that the movie really wasn't entertaining for me personally. It was more of I respect it because of the behind the scenes than actually watching it and saying, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. That's what more like it was. But yeah, that's why it's my number 9. Next up, my number 8, we have Time Bandit. This movie was okay. I like some of the weird imagery that's on display. Performances are nice. It's a movie that doesn't 100% gel with me personally, but it is a movie that I can respect from afar. And that's why it's my number 8. Next up, my number 7 is The Zero Theorem. I wanted to like this movie. I really did. Christoph Waltz plays such a unique character, honestly, from anything I've seen him previously do. It's a movie that it's brimming with some imagination. It's got a slick production design that has that Terry Gilliam effect of being very focused on the weird and abstract. But it's just a movie that doesn't come together as a whole. It's again, and I know it's something that I'm kind of, a broken record at this point. But just like other entries, it's very totally inconsistent, and the pacing is just off. Maybe I'll revisit it at some point. Maybe I'll appreciate it more. But as it stands, I wasn't a huge fan of it, and that's why it is my number 7. Next up, we have my number 6, which is The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. This movie was okay as well. It's very much so critically acclaimed. A lot of people I know really like this movie, but I just kind of felt indifferent watching it. I felt like I could really tell the length. Again, wanted to like it, but alas, here I am. So yeah, that's my number 6. Next up, my number 5 is The Fisher King. Fisher King is a solid film. Jeff Bridges does a good job. I didn't love it. Watching it, I really wasn't a big fan of it, truth be told, but I can't lie that there is some pretty strong writing that I liked. And then, of course, the lead performance I thought was also really good. I don't know. It's a movie that maybe I'll revisit at some point, but I felt like The Fisher King just, it left a lot to be desired for me personally, based on my taste. And that is why it is my number 5. Next up, my number 4 is, speaking of wanting to rewatch, my number 4 is Brazil. This is a movie I know I need to revisit. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset. I don't know. I do kind of remember that was probably the case. But I do need to revisit this, see if that's something that I can really appreciate, because I think that the creativity of Brazil is really there from what I remember. And it's something that, again, with all the imagination on screen, I just feel like it's not really a one-and-done type movie. And that's why it's my number 4. Next up, my number 3 is 12 Monkeys. Brad Pitt, Bruce Willis, they do a great job together. I think, in particular, Brad Pitt did an excellent job, which is why he got nominated for an Oscar. I see why so many people love this movie, but I do feel that I personally was kind of like a bit distanced from everything. I think that maybe it was just because some of the characters weren't that developed. But overall, I respect this movie, and that is why it is my number 3. Next up, my number 2. This is the one I cheated on, guys. My number 2 is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So this movie is technically directed by Terry Gilliam and another director, but if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong here, Terry Gilliam did all of the directing, whilst the other director got credit, but he himself focused on like the puppetry and the costumes. Again, I could be wrong, but that's what I heard, and that's why I was like, you know what, I'm going to count this, because especially I feel like a lot of people know Terry Gilliam is the guy that did Holy Grail, so I wanted to include this movie, and I personally really like this movie. I think it's one of the funniest movies around. It's so clever. It's so well written. So many gags that I really like. What is your favorite color? Blue? No, green. I don't know. It's like stuff like that. It's silly, but it really gets the job done. And that's why it's my number 2. Next up, my number 1. The movie that the first time I saw it, I did not like, but couldn't get out of my head and revisited it. And here I am giving it my number 1 slot. My number 1 is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This movie is so trippy. This movie is, it's bonkers. It's insane. I grew so appreciative of this movie the second time I watched it. I'm glad that I bought it on Blu-ray, because I can see myself watching this movie many more times. It's a movie that has grown on me with the second viewing, and it's definitely a movie that when people think Terry Gilliam, I feel like this is the movie that they first think of because of just all that it goes about, and that is why it's personally my number 1. So yeah, that's my ranking of Terry Gilliam's films, guys. Let me know your ranking of his films down below, of his movies. And also, what do you guys want me to rank next? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you very much for the subscription, notification bell, follow me on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.